friends. This is Thaddeus from Going Nerdy, and today I have a special guest with me, and that is DickieDarkside from the DickieDarkside YouTube channel. Now, Dickie, welcome.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Now, a couple of days ago, you came to me and you were like, "I think we have this idea, and I think it'd be really cool to do." And I jumped on it with both feet, diving in head first and both feet at the same time. And I love the idea here. Now, the concept here is there's a lot of rumors about certain characters being, from the Star Wars universe, being recast, right? And you've heard these rumors probably as well, that Luke might be played by someone else, right?
Yeah.
And so you had the idea, and I've been thinking about this for years, ever since there were those dream castings in the Wizard magazine, comic magazine. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
You ever see those?
Oh yeah, Wizard.
And I remember one that was back in the day, was like, who would play Gambit from X-Men? And this may date me a little bit, but it was always Jean-Claude Van Damme playing Gambit from X-Men.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, he's got the Cajun, he's got the Creole, and he's acrobatic and stuff. But he's I think 3'5" or something. But so you and I have come up with individual lists for who we think could play some key characters in the original trilogy and the prequels. Now, on my channel, we're just going to be talking about the original trilogy. And on your channel, we're going to be talking about the prequels.
That is the plan.
Now, the way this is going to work out is we're going to put up, Dickie's got a series of images, and he's going to put up the character first, and then what we'll do is we'll put up our choice, and then we'll talk about why we chose that, and then we'll switch. So, I'll go first, and then Dickie will go next, and then vice versa, right? And we'll go through all of the major characters that we've chosen for this list. Dickie, would you introduce the character list that we'll be discussing today?
Yes. So for the original trilogy, the characters that we are going to be recasting are Luke, Leia, Han, obviously, the big three. We're going to recast Old Ben, Grand Moff Tarkin, Lando Calrissian, Lobot, Boba Fett, and Emperor Palpatine.
Was this easy? Was this difficult? Did everyone just come to mind?
It was a lot harder than I thought it would be, simply for the fact that everybody who I could think of that I was like, oh, they would be great. When I looked at it, they were all too old, because a lot of these characters like Luke and Leia are teenagers, right? Or in the beginning. And I'm like the idea of Sebastian Stan playing Luke is, yes, he fits right, and if they do it with the Mandalorian, but if I'm recasting episode 4, he's too old to be playing that Luke.
Yeah. Oh, and it was so hard as I was going through this. I was like, I don't know who I'm going to choose. Who could play this character effectively? And it was so challenging. Go ahead.
It is, because you have to find these actors that are young, that are just starting off almost, because there have to be 18 and 19, and some I picked actors that may be a little bit older but who could pull off being
as did I,
better than Luke Perry did in 90210. They can pull off being a teenager.
Yeah, I mean, he's not 40 playing a 17-year-old, right?
Yeah.
that was the hardest thing. I was going through this and I was, as I was thinking about it, one of the big problems with things like Solo, where they've done kind of this, is you have to have a character who has not only the ability to play these characters, but the actor themselves have to be strong enough to withstand the weight of the role, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a challenge unto itself. And this was a lot harder than I thought it would be. I struggled with this.
Complete agreement. Like I found myself actually going and like researching these people. I'm like, okay, they have the look, but then going in on YouTube and watching like their demos and stuff like that, and watching like footage of them, and I'm like trying to find situations in which they could relate to those characters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's so tough. So shall we start off with the chosen one himself?
Yes, we shall. You're going to have to allow me to share my screen.
Okay, I'll do that. All right, so there we go.
And I gotta say, it is these young characters that were way harder than the older characters.
Yeah.
The older characters, I found like, the hardest part was I could think of 6 or 7 that would fit that, and I'm like, with the young ones, it was just like, who's actually going to fit? Like, who's?
Yeah, and so Luke Skywalker.
Yes.
I'm going to start this off, and I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball here. I say curveball, maybe not, because Luke, episode 4, Luke he's naive, he's young, he's innocent, he's almost naively stupid about the galaxy, and I don't mean any disrespect, but it's just he hopes, and he's so pure. Now the character that I chose was Reed Ewing. Now this character plays, the only thing that I know him from is he plays Dylan on Modern Family, and this is and I haven't seen him in some of the more recent seasons, but he is this idiot who is very trusting, very aloof. He's got the same physical build. He does have dark hair instead of blonde hair, but that can be fixed. But there's an innocence about him that I think he would be able to capture Luke's hopefulness. And I think as he grows through the story, I think that is something that we could see really develop effectively. And I think he'd be a good actor. He's not one that I've seen in a lot of stuff, though. And so really, I've not seen him in an action role. I've not seen him play something very serious where, like in episode 6 where he's fighting against his father. Like that's not something I'm not sure that he could really hang on to, but it is something that I think potentially he could do well.
Yeah, and it is part of the Luke role, is he has to be able to pull off that naive farm boy and the Jedi Knight, like, and the whole growth in between. It's a very difficult transition to do. But I do like your choice. I can see like, at first when you said his name, I didn't recognize him, and you had to tell me he was from Modern Family, and then I was like, yeah, okay, I can picture it. And he does do the naive kind of...
Doesn't he?
Yeah, he does that perfectly. It's him pulling off the Jedi Knight later on that you don't know.
And that's the thing. I'm just not sure he could, but it would be hard. Like, who knew Mark Hamill at the time, and could he do it? I think with the right director, they're golden.
And you said something interesting when you were like, well, he doesn't have the blonde hair, which to me, when I was recasting these characters, I'm recasting them as if these were brand new movies, and I didn't necessarily... Physical attributes were important, but I didn't necessarily need them to have the same or to look like... I think Sebastian Stan gets cast because he looks exactly like Mark Hamill, like physically. And that's an established character. And oftentimes I found myself, yes, these guys do actually resemble the original character, but they have their own thing going on too.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that would be interesting to see how he or anyone, because again, the rumors are that they're going to recast some of these characters.
Yeah.
How would they do it? How would they take a character established and make it their own? So, who did you choose?
So for me, I went to the cast of Stranger Things for Joe Keery. I find plays like the like in that show, he plays like the
Yeah.
small town boy with the small town charm. Like he doesn't necessarily is as naive as Luke, but I feel like he could pull that off with that small town charm. But you also see him in a lot of action situations thrown into a lot of very serious situations, and he pulls those two off very well.
Yes, he does.
Which to me is kind of what kind of got me there. It's what said that he could take on this role.
Yeah, and I think you got something here, because he does play that wanting to get out, right? I too looked at Stranger Things for a couple of my characters, and I really wanted to cast him as this. I chose him for a different role,
Okay.
and I like him, but I think you're right. He's got that whole hometown. I think he would do a great job. I think you're absolutely right. I think he would do a wonderful job. Now, let's move on to Sister Skywalker. This is challenging.
This was probably, I'd say, the two hardest in the entire list were Leia and Padme.
Oh, here's the thing. For me, there's absolutely a connection between my Leia and my Padme. And
okay.
I won't give it away, but I'll say it on your show, or I'll say it on the video when we go into the. But yeah, I have an absolute connection here, because this is a challenging one. Mm-hmm. Who did you choose for Leia?
You want mine first?
Okay. Yeah, let's go with yours first.
So for mine, I went with possibly a lot of people won't recognize her, ZOEY DEUTCH. She is Leah Thompson's daughter, if you remember from Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And you probably don't recognize her in this picture, but if you saw Zombieland 2.
I haven't yet. I wanted to, but I haven't got to it.
She plays a blonde, ditzy airhead in that movie. But it's hilarious, because I've seen her on another role, The Politician, a series where she plays a more serious role, and she pulls that off too. But what kind of nailed it for me is in both of those roles, she plays like the naive, and she could be like, she would have been the perfect female Luke. Like, she pulls off those two sides perfectly. But in both of those roles, she has kind of like an attitude, and she has she plays, even when she's the ditzy airhead, in the end, she ends up being the strong character who's like, you underestimated her, and she has that kind of kick-ass mentality, and she pulls it off great, which is what kind of sealed it for me. And the pinnacle of it for me, that I was like, yeah, she's my Leia. And I went to this one for a couple of different characters, is watching the Princess Bride remake on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen this, but there's a bunch of actors who are redoing roles from the Princess Bride, scenes from the Princess Bride and Diego Luna from Rogue One doing Indigo Montoya is fantastic. With Jack Black as his Wesley. And there's a scene where Zoe does they redid another scene where Zoe does Wesley.
Yeah.
And she's got that swashbuckling attitude, and that, to me, I'm like, that's Leia. She's got it. You've got the role.
That's awesome. Now, it's interesting you went swashbuckling, because I turned to someone who's known for her swashbuckling is probably not the right word, but known for her strength, her character, the way that her character's played out in the stories that she's done. For my character, for my Leia, I took her, this actress, from a TV series, and she's done a lot of wonderful things since this, but it's the series shows her depth of character, her ability to play the noble, but also to be cunning, to be strong, I've seen her in other things where you see her actually play action. I'm talking about Game of Thrones. I'm talking about the new X-Men movies, and I'm speaking of Sophie Turner. And she's got just this look of regalness to her. She's an amazing actress, and she does have a wide breadth of films under her belt this time, and I think she would be amazing. Again, you see her in Game of Thrones playing the daughter of Ned Stark, who's gone through all of this traumatic experience, but still coming out on top. And that's Leia. I mean, she's an orphan, and she's raised by parents who love her, right? Bail and Brie Organa. They're great parents, but she knows from a young age that, I mean, she has that in the back of her mind. That's not really my mom and dad. She's not told until much later, until she finds out that Luke is really her, her brother. That's after making out with him for a little bit. But I really feel like there's a lot of potential for Sophie Turner to play a character like Leia. Like if she were to be recast, or if Leia would be recast, I think she would do an amazing job.
I'll just give my thoughts on that, because I did consider her for the role, and she actually also plays a scene as Wesley in the Princess Bride YouTube remix. Yes, with Joe Jonas, her husband, playing Buttercup, and they are fantastic. My only the reason I kind of put her out in my mind and she kind of got disqualified is I've actually met Sophie Turner.
Oh yeah,
when they were shooting X-Men in Montreal, and she is a giant. Yeah,
but here's my thing, that would make the line, "Aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper?" that much better, because she would tower over Luke.
Yeah, that is true. That would make it, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with her being a giant. I'm just like
True. I mean, Tom Cruise is like 4'9". So
yeah, cameras do, like, you could never tell by watching Game of Thrones that she is like 6'2" or whatever she was.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 5'10", and I was looking up at her like,
awesome.
I was like, whoa, okay.
Holy cow. Yeah. Just don't hit me in the top of the head. That's all I ask. That's awesome.
All right, so next we have
B. Han Solo.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to go this time because we've already met this actor already in this this recasting, and I'm saying Joe Keery. Now, for some of the same reasons you mentioned, because he has that that charm, that ability to act under pressure, to not only be funny, but also action. Like, he can do action. We've seen him in Stranger Things do action. He's got the hair, right? And it's not the same hair, obviously. It's a 2000-ish cut. But, like, the only thing that I would have an issue with Joe Keery or anyone is that stare that Harrison Ford has. The just ice cold stare. And I'm not sure anyone thought him could pull that off. But I don't know. I think Joe Keery could do a good job as a Harrison Ford. I thought of a number of different actors that were younger that could play him, but I really thought he would do the best. I really thought Joe Keery would do the best.
I agree. I think he would do a great job. He kind of jumped around on my list too. I had him considered for a few different things, and ultimately I settled on Luke. But yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
So who did you get for Han?
So me is an actor that if you told me 5 years ago that I was going to do a fantasy recasting and I was going to cast this guy as Han Solo, I would have told you you're insane. But he's done quite a few roles lately, and he's an actor that I would avoid any movie he was in up until I saw Bad Neighbors. And he's done a lot of movies lately that I think were fantastic. And I think Zac Efron could pull off an amazing Han Solo. I think he could pull off that swagger, that kind of like, you know,
Yeah.
he can be the brave kind of guy who comes in and saves the day. He can do all of that. I think he could pull off the swagger. And like I said, he's a guy that 5 years ago I would avoid any movie he was in, just because, you know, I thought he was kind of like a teen beat.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I thought about Zac Efron a little bit. He could play younger. That's the nice thing. He's still got that baby face that allows him to do. But he's done some great things. Now, granted, a lot of the stuff that he's done have been the stuff that I'm thinking of is like, you know, like you said, Bad Neighbors. But I'm thinking of Baywatch. Even in Baywatch, this is a very silly film. He still plays an action-y role, and he still holds his own. And I think you're right. I think Zac Efron would do a great job. And he's a Disney prodigy, so getting him on board might not be as difficult as all that. So I don't know.
And I don't think, like, when you say he's younger, to me, I wasn't thinking like, I see Han Solo as older than Luke and Leia. Like, he's not a teenager when we meet him. Like, he's already been around, and we know that from Solo that took place like you know, supposedly I think it was 12 years before Episode 4 or something. I forget exactly what it was.
Yeah,
but
it's within. Yeah, so I want to say that Han, when we meet him in Episode 4, is about 25, 26. I don't think he's in his 30s yet. And I do think that Luke and Leia are probably late teens, or even early 20s. But that's early 20s would definitely be pushing it. Late teens are my thought, but I don't have a specific age. But I think he would do a good job. And I think you're right. I think he's got that look of years.
Like he's got, just looking at that photo, he's got that stare too. He's got that kind of like. I'm not saying it's as good as Harrison Ford's. Harrison Ford is on another level.
Yes.
But you know, he's got something.
Yeah. No, I agree. And he would do a wonderful job. Okay. Old Ben. Now, this one was pretty hard for me, but I think I came up with someone, and I think I pulled. So I gotta say that I pulled a few of my actors from Game of Thrones. And the one. So when I think of Old Ben, I think there's a level of humility, of dignity. He's wise. He's sorrowful even. But you don't know that till after the prequels. I mean, you get a feeling for it. But and the character that I was thinking that I felt best matched the way that he was played in the originals would be the character from Game of Thrones, Sir Davos, played by Liam Cunningham. If you are familiar with The Onion Knight, then you know he fits a lot of those same attributes that Alec
Guinness.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that Alec Guinness was able to bring to life, to bring to pass with his portrayal of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I think that Sir Davos would, or I think Liam Cunningham would do an amazing job. He would I think pay an homage to the way that it was done in the past, while at the same time definitely making it his own character. Right? I think we might even see more, more action out of Liam Cunningham, simply because, you know, Alec Guinness was around at the beginning. He just didn't know what was going on because he didn't know what Star Wars would become.
Yeah.
I mean, Cunningham doesn't have that same, I think, weight or burden to carry. So I think he could put a different spin on it. I think he's still athletic enough in his age that we could see a pretty awesome battle between him and Darth Vader. So Just a thought.
That I think I'll tell you that we came very close to actually matching on this one.
Did we?
Yes, we came very, very close. But for me, there was a decision to be made here because there was something. I love Alec Guinness's performance, and I absolutely adore Ewan McGregor's performance. But they don't seem like the same character to me. If I was trying to match Alex Guinness, then Davos was my choice. But I went a different direction where I tried to make an older version of the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan Kenobi that had that kind of sarcasm, that had that like, hello there. Like he had that, like, because to me, they don't, like, I love both performances, but I've always had struggled to marry that one is the other because I feel like they're playing different characters. I feel like Ewan McGregor, as much as he was amazing, was playing a very different person. So I decided to go in another direction, and instead of trying to match what Alec Guinness, I tried to make an older Ewan McGregor.
Okay.
And so my choice was Tim Roth.
Oh my gosh. I mean, if you were to age Ewan McGregor like a fine bottle of wine, he would become Tim Roth. Oh, that is an amazing choice. I fault you nothing, sir. That is, I think you're right.
I think you would probably have to age him a little bit because I think he's not as old as, but I mean, makeup and stuff, and he's not that far off at this point. But I think he would make a Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan. He could have that wisdom and that sage of a Jedi Knight who's been through everything, but while retaining that kind of attitude and cynicism that Ewan McGregor brought to the role.
Oh yeah. So, you were spot on, sir. I take mine back. Tim Roth would be amazing, and I agree 100%.
Awesome. Well,
he should be good.
Yeah, so that was my. I went in a completely different. Like I kind of, sorry to Alec Guinness, I threw him out the window entirely, and went in a different direction.
And that was part of the interesting thing as I went about it. And I'm assuming you clearly had the same concept, where you had to make these choices that were difficult, you know. And I think I think you're right. I think you're dead on. So. Tarkin.
So with Tarkin, I'll go first because I didn't separate. It'll just show as I pull it over because apparently I'm not the only one. When I looked up this character, he actually is a fan casting that's apparently been popular. So I apparently wasn't as original as I thought I was. It's a blank screen. Yay. What's going on? We're gonna have some post work to do. There we go.
Oh, so I see
it. These images, I didn't have it fade in because this picture actually, when I looked up
the two
I wanted to see side by side, and it actually is an image that was already out there. It was Willem Dafoe is apparently a fantasy casting, as there was a campaign when they did Peter Cushing in Rogue One that rather than do him CG as they did, they're like just cast Willem Dafoe as Tarkin. And you know what? Looking at them side by side, I see it. They definitely have the physical resemblance, but I think they could have the same kind of like commanding presence. And so,
I'm right there with you. I think Willem Dafoe is a fantastic cast. You're gonna probably laugh at mine. I am, and hold on, let me bring him up real quick over on, because I want, if you're not familiar with him, I don't want you to be like, oh, who is that guy? So, Stephen Merchant.
Yes.
Okay. So Stephen Merchant is a comedic actor. He's
Yes.
not one that ever plays a real strong, I don't know, like real, I don't know, he doesn't, he's not in a lot of dramas that I'm familiar with, but he always plays the straight man. He doesn't break character. He's very polished and precise, and I don't think that it would be a lot to ask from a performance from him to be to take that polishedness, to take his type of acting and add menace to it, the menace that you see from Tarkin. Because I've listened. I just finished this last couple of weeks. I just finished listening to Star Wars Thrawn Treason, and I'm preparing myself for Thrawn Chaos, Thrawn Ascendancy, Chaos Rising, the new Thrawn trilogy that's coming out September 1st. Very excited. I have both the audiobook pre-ordered and the physical book pre-ordered.
Nice.
I'm stoked. Tuesday, I'm very excited. But anyways, it would be, it's been interesting because in Thrawn Treason, you get a lot of Tarkin. And even from Tarkin, you get a lot of this background of him being just calculated. And I could see Stephen Merchant being that level of calculated, still putting off the I am a governor or Grand Moff or wherever he is at the time, and I'm whoever, but I still think we could see some menace from him. The same level of menace that, maybe not the same level of menace that we got from the original Tarkin, but close to it. And to do it in his own way, I think he would do a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Unique in his own right.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. And I'm a big fan of comedic actors in dramatic roles. I think that they give performances that surprise people, that give a performance that they're not expecting. Like
exactly.
And they're often like, there's nothing harder, I find it, for actors than to have comedic timing. Comedic timing to me is much harder than dramatic timing. So oftentimes when they make that switch over, they kill it.
Yeah. And I mean, if you just take a look at like so many of the action movies, a lot of them got their start in comedy roles. I look at Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was originally a comedy star.
Yeah.
But I mean, and others. I mean, I think of, I don't want to give this away, but there's someone on my list who is very comedic that that we've seen him in action roles. We've seen him actually in Star Wars. I've recast him from a Star Wars film, and you see comedic done well, right? But also you see a whole new level of their ability, and I love it. So, shall we move on?
Yeah. The next one was probably the easiest one on the list for me.
Okay. So then I want you to go first because I just want to see what you chose.
Well, I didn't go too far off the board here. I think Solo got it perfect.
Yes! That's who I chose too. That's exactly who I chose.
I couldn't recast him as anybody else. Like Donald Glover, just
such an amazing job.
He did it perfect. I was just like, if we're restarting the trilogy, then I'm choosing nobody other than Donald Glover. Like this was a no-brainer. Like
I'll stop talking. You go.
Well, I was just like, I tried to think, I'm like, is this the cheap way out? But I'm like, I tried to think of somebody who could pull it off better, and I couldn't. He was perfect. Yeah. He was, to me, the best part of Solo. He was.
I'm right there with you.
Like, it was like somebody took Billy D. Williams in his youth and put him on screen. Like, they de-aged him. It was. I think he may have even somehow pulled off like more suaveness and more like. I was just like, all right. So, yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. Like, yeah, I don't care if it's the cheap way out to use the actual actor they recast as him, but
yeah,
I couldn't do a better job of it myself. So
yeah, no, and I'm right there with you. Like, when they canceled Solo 2, or when they said that they weren't going to do a Solo 2, my hope was the trilogy that they originally meant to, the standalone movies that were like supposed to be a trilogy but not a trilogy. What I was hoping that they would do would be Star Wars Solo, Star Wars Lando, Star Wars like Kira or something like that, where they do these standalone films that are interconnected but also independent of each other. And I would love to see, and I think that Donald Glover is actually getting either a TV show or a film, either coming to DisneyPLus or to theaters. Obviously, if it's a TV show, we'll see it on DisneyPLus, but he would do a phenomenal job. And Lando's a character that we see explored in comics and in books, but not someone that we've seen a lot of in film, TV. I mean, we saw Lando briefly in Star Wars Rebels. We don't see him, in Clone Wars, but there's a lot of potential there, and I think Donald Glover, and again, I'm right there with you. They did a perfect job. And as I was mentioning, when I was saying everything that I was saying before we got to Lando, this is who I was thinking of, and this is what I was talking. I didn't want to give myself away, but like he started off on Saturday Night Live as a writer, then went to Community, and Community was amazing. Well, most of it was amazing. It went downhill after he left the show, and but then you see him he was in I think The Martian, right? Like he plays the scientist who does the math to get the guy stuck on Mars home. I mean, you have to be able to have range to play a scientist who does math and still make it compelling. I mean, because it's math. I don't know. I'm not a math person, but like he did such a wonderful job. And I too was a little concerned that it was the easy way out, but he's perfect.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything, but it was easy. It was done. I was like, yeah.
So
now we move on to Lando's partner, in Lobot.
Now I'm gonna go first here.
Yeah.
Just because Lobot is a character who has no lines in the original film, right? Like I don't think he speaks.
No, he doesn't. Like they explore that in the comics, that when he got his headset, like it took away his ability to speak and his ability to feel too. Like he's kind of like cold.
Again, I'm gonna choose another comedic actor. And this is one that, as long as he doesn't speak, I think could absolutely play Lando. Again, the only concern I have would be the eyes, because there's definitely laughter in this man's eyes. But Jim Rash from Community, the Dean from Community. I've seen him in like everything comedic. I mean, I don't think I've seen him in a serious role ever. My wife and I have been kind of like off and on watching Reno 911, and he plays a character in Reno 911, and it's very similar. But like, I think the presence, if he were just to be quiet, I think he could pull it off.
I think so too. I think you're right. I think he definitely. It would be interesting. Again, it's a role that would be completely different for him, but I will never discount a comedic actor's ability to be dramatic. I think it's looked down upon as if comedy is a lower form of acting, but I think it's much more difficult than to be dramatic. So
I agree.
I will never look down for that. Now, you went with a much smaller Lobot.
Yes.
Because Jim Rash is a very small man.
Very petite.
I went with a much larger Lobot. I went with, and this is again somebody who would be completely out of character to sit there expressionless and motionless. But
Oh, I was close because my first thought was he's gonna say The Rock. But
the Rock would be too much. Like I think he would be like too massive. But yeah, for me, like I think he could pull. He can do the intense stare. If you just purposely picked a picture where he's giving an intense stare. I think them like, you know, I think he could pull it off. I think he would do a great job of it. I've seen him in a couple of movies acting, and he's not necessarily the best at it, but it's his dialogue that usually comes off as terrible. Like his presence he has no issues with presence, and he has no issue with like with his screen persona. It's just always his dialogue. He ends up I find miscast. Like he just I don't know. And I think he could pull off Lobot. It was between him and the easy one for me was Michael Chiklis.
Oh yes.
But I'm like, I just felt like, no, I think that was a little bit too easy. I think Steve Austin was a good choice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know, and I like that. The reason, another reason why I chose Jim Rash was, he doesn't have the intensity that Steve Austin has, even a little bit. But one of the reasons is he's not as well known, and people would recognize him, but they probably wouldn't place him right off the bat. And so I don't think that he would distract.
Yeah.
You know, he would do the job and do it effectively to move the story along. And especially with the characterization of Lando, just that very bombastic, flamboyant, very outgoing character of, especially the way that Donald Glover's playing him. I think a more subtle actor would be good. I love Steve Austin though. I think that would be amazing.
I just want to see your Lobot and my Lobot next to each other.
I'll do that in post. I'm gonna put my Lobot next to your Lobot and be like, battle.
There's no doubt which Lobot would win in a fight.
Yeah, clearly Jim Rash would. Clearly, Jim Rash would totally dominate Steve Austin.
Very squirrely, very like.
Yes, you just get out from underneath it. Okay, so I struggled with this.
So did I.
I mean, when I think of Boba, it's hard for me to separate Boba and the clones, right? This is a very challenging thing, and so part of me wondered, like, do I want to go with someone who's big and built? Do I want to go with someone who's a true, tried and true action star? And so I went through a number of actors who I thought could play their own form of Boba, right? I landed on Jason Momoa. And my thought is somewhere between Aquaman and Khal Drogo. Not Khal Drogo, that's the guy from Rocky. Like Khal Drogo and Aquaman, that type of physicality, right? That type of cunningness. And I really think there's a lot of potential there. Now, Boba will never take off his helmet. We won't see him. But I do think that there's a lot of potential for Jason Momoa. He also is going to fill out the suit a little differently than previous Bobas have. But I think that it would be, I think he'd do a great job. He's a wonderful actor.
I think he would too. He has, he definitely can have an intimidating presence. And I think that's something that Boba Fett, the character, I find he kind of lacks it in the performance that we see in the original trilogy. Like, I think for the reputation that he has, the role that he has, he should seem more menacing than he does. I think became an iconic character because of his look, and it was very unique, and it was very, different character. But I don't think he was menacing enough for who he was. So I like your choice of somebody who would bring more physicality. And I also, when I was like, I couldn't separate Boba from the clones, I picked the same actor for both. I'll tell you that ahead of time. I don't know if you picked separate, but I was like, I had to, like, if I was cloning an army, who would I want to clone?
Yeah, because that's the real character. It's like, who is this person going to be in the prequels?
Yeah.
Right? Love it.
So I also went with somebody who will fill out this suit much more. And I'm going with a similar theme as my last choice. Now, I don't know if you saw the new Ninja Turtles movie, but I can never tell them apart. If he was Rocksteady or Bebop, I can't tell them apart. But he was fantastic in that movie. He was amazing. Like he displayed some great acting skills.
Yeah, and he did. You're right.
He had a very menacing presence. There was a comedic aspect to the role that I don't think he would need to bring to Boba Fett. But if I seem like a wrestling fan now. I've cast 2 wrestlers in a row. I've never watched too much wrestling, but what I have seen of him, he's very intimidating and very physical. And I think he could bring that even through a suit. Just his posture and the way he acts. And there's a whole separate reason I picked him that I'll kind of reserve for when we talk about the clones.
Okay. All right.
Spoiler alert.
I look forward to that because go ahead.
Yeah, it's just very specific to the clones. So
okay, but and I think you're right. Like when it comes to the suit, like he would be imposing, right? Yeah, I think you're dead on.
Same as Jason Momoa, he would be imposing in that suit. Like they would both. I think it's a matter of like when you're behind that mask and behind that suit, it's all about posture and it's all about like attitude. And that's what I always found. Boba was just kind of like very loose. Like most of the time I felt like he wasn't even holding his gun right. Like you're supposed to be the most renowned bounty hunter, and I
always thought he was checking out other people. Like if there were women in Jabba's palace, he's like, hey, she dances well. So
I went the same route as you. I think we both we wanted a more intimidating physical presence, and I think we went with similar choices. Yours is about probably a foot taller, but
is he? Isn't Seamus like 6 something?
Is he? I don't know.
I thought he was big. I don't know, but
maybe it's just that stocky kind of look that he has that makes me think he's shorter. But he's definitely
could be that he's wearing a Speedo. I mean,
it could be the Speedo might be distracting.
Could be the Speedo. Right.
That also might be distracting. Yes.
Yes. All right.
Alrighty. So
Big Papa Palps.
Big Papa Palpatine. Spoiler alert, I chose the same actor for both prequel and again.
Okay.
But for me, I tried as like who can be menacing and who can have that serious tone, but also like he has to be somewhat likable at the beginning. Like you kind of have to, and so for me, I had CHRISTOPH WALTZ, and I'm like, what way to make him more imposing and evil than to make him German?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a great choice. And he is a charismatic actor. I think as Senator Palpatine, he'd probably do a wonderful job, building the trust of a young Padme, building the trust of the Senate in him. I see he very political, you know, vibe, right? But also you are dead on, menacing as all get out. That is powerful. I 100% agree. I'm talking, but you go.
Well, yeah, for me that was just it. I was like, he has to be both likable and imposing. He has to play those two roles, and he is a guy who, even when he plays the creepiest character, like I'm thinking of that scene in Inglourious Bastards, he still has a certain charm that you're drawn to him somehow.
Yeah.
Like he's the most, like he's a Nazi. You can't get more evil than playing a Nazi. You're still drawn to that character somehow. And
Yeah.
and then you look at in Django Unchained, he's almost playing the same kind of attitude and character, yet he's lovable and likable, and you're on his side, but somehow he's still the same. It's a similar performance, yet it's the nuance between like likable and completely batshit evil that he pulls off. He pulls off with like the tiniest change. So for me, that made him, and that was exactly what I thought too. I'm like, he's somebody who could draw in Anakin, somebody who could draw in people,
Yeah,
with charm and still be like, you know, make you shit your pants in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I picked a very seasoned actor here. This one was hard for me because I wanted to find someone who could still, I don't know, I wanted to find someone who was scary to me, right? Who would make me afraid of Palpatine, right? Like, as I go back and watch the originals, as I read about Palpatine, it is this dark, powerful man. And like, I've been thinking, like, who has played that type of character? Who has played someone who is willing to go after everything to get whatever they want? And I landed on Anthony Hopkins. And
yeah,
I mean, you could see it. Like, he's, first off, he's older, so he's got the wrinkles. He's there. But like, him under the mask. I mean, looking at the left side of the face of Palpatine, I could see just the intensity within the eyes. I mean, Anthony Hopkins is such an amazing actor, and has such a diversity of roles that, like, you could go back and just check anything and say, like, oh yeah, I totally see it now. But so imposing. Hannibal Lecter, just being Hannibal Lecter alone is really all you need.
Yeah, and like Hannibal Lecter to Palpatine, it's the same kind of aura, but yeah, and I could see him also being the charismatic guy who draws you in. He's played the lovable character in so many. I mean, he's played pretty much every character you can possibly imagine at this point.
True.
You know?
But like, I look at as Palpatine, like, I'm looking at his credits now. Odin, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how did I forget he played Odin? But like, I'm looking at Odin and I'm thinking, Odin, wise, you know, knowledgeable. He's there to give guidance and stuff. But underneath is that Anthony Hopkins. How else would Anakin fall but to someone who could convince him, could act like that, that mentor that Anakin needs, that father figure that Anakin needs, that turns out to be more devious than Anakin realized. Now, Christopher Waltz, though, wow, I'm still reeling from that one because I didn't even think about that. Like, I want to go back through his repertoire and just find a moment where he's like, do it, and just see how it compares. But, oh, awesome.
Well, like, I know we're discussing original trilogy now, but for me, the Palpatine, the scene that I pictured, like, I thought of a couple of different actors, and I'm ashamed of myself that I didn't think of Anthony Hopkins, because again, yeah, he can do those dual roles so well.
Yeah.
But to me, the scene that I pictured them in, and I was like, could he pull off that scene, is when he's explaining the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise to Anakin. Like, how would he pull off that role? Like, to me, that is the quintessential, that is the moment where he starts off as the likable father figure, but turns into like the evil, like he's showing his true colors.
Yeah.
And that was the scene that I was like, can this actor pull that off? And there's a couple of actors that I was thinking of that were just kind of thrown out the door because they couldn't pull off that scene. But I'm thinking of Anthony Hopkins, and he would destroy that scene. He would absolutely kill that scene too. So.
Dominated. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is our list. Now
that is the original trilogy.
That is our original trilogy. I'm sure there were other characters that we left out, other fan favorites that we left out, but we felt like this was the best list for this video, right?
Yes.
Depending on the reaction, maybe we could do a fan, viewer, who would we choose? Viewer suggested. Clearly, we didn't talk about any Ewoks. I'd love to see The Rock dressed up as an Ewok. Just throwing that out there. Chief Chirpa drops the people's elbow, But we'll leave that to in the comments. If you have an idea, or if you disagree or agree with our choices, leave a comment in the section below and let us know what you guys think. In the section below, you will find 2 links. One for Audible. You can get a free trial to 2 audiobooks, and then within a month you're good. Second is the Going Nerdy Swag Store, but the third link, and probably above all of those other ones, DickieDarkside. Where can they find you?
My channel is just as you said, DickieDarkside. There's no fancy other name to it. It's just DickieDarkside. For those who don't know me, I put a lot of, I put all of the power and none of the point into PowerPoint.
That's the best way.
Yes, I mainly do a lot of silly comedy things on my, but I wanted to branch out, and part of when I started doing this, I wanted to do a lot of more Star Wars stuff that wasn't necessarily related to Galaxy of Heroes, and this was my first one, and when I reached out, to me the ideal person to do this with was yourself, which is funny since I think that the first time I actually did anything, collaborated with anything, was on the Escape podcast, when basically Paul was like my first video that I did, which literally I put it online, and the next day I had a message from Paul, like, come on.
I remember how excited he was when he's like, we're getting this guy on, it's going to be great. He did this video and it's so much fun. Go check it out. It was really cool.
And that was his first thing. He told me, like, it reminded him a lot of your videos. So
yeah.
That was a bit more of less of a comedy video, and more, it was just a list of factions we need in the game. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, you can find Dickie's videos and links in the section below. Check it out. Subscribe and give him a thumbs up. Let him know what you guys think of his work. Leave a comment in the section below. Like, subscribe, share. And again, as always, comment, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This has been Thaddeus and Dickie. And as always, my friends, smile. Stay nerdy.